How do you turn the best infantry of the age into target practice? You don't punch through their armor. You don't break their shields. You just hand your soldiers absurdly long sticks and force the enemy to play by your rules. You are the king of a small, vulnerable country. To the south, Greek city-states with the finest heavy infantry of the era. To the north and west, hostile tribes. To the east, the enormous Persian Empire. Almost any of these enemies is stronger than you, especially the Greek hoplites. Their armor absorbs the first blow, their spear reaches the enemy before a sword can, and their tight formation turns individual men into a single wall. Macedon could try to copy that system. Arm its soldiers with big shields and good armor, and try to beat the Greeks at their own game. But then the Macedonians would be playing by someone else's rules, fielding a cheap, inexperienced knockoff of an army the Greeks already knew how to fight. Philip II chooses a different path. He decides to make the hoplites' greatest strength irrelevant. If the Greek is unbeatable in close combat, then close combat simply must never happen. A hoplite's spear is about 2.5 meters long. The Macedonian sarissa was nearly twice that, 4 to 5 meters. You can't hold a pike like that with one hand, so the Macedonian gives up the big shield, hangs a small one around his neck, and grips the shaft with both hands. At first glance, he's now more vulnerable. Heavier weapon, worse protection. In a one-on-one duel, he'd lose. But the sarissa wasn't made for duels, it was made for the formation. When the Macedonians form a deep phalanx and lower their pikes together, the first rank isn't fronted by one spear point. It's fronted by 5. The hoplite now faces a math problem. He's still superbly protected, but his spear is stabbing air. To reach the first Macedonian, he has to get through 5 blades. He knocks one aside with his shield, deflects a second, but the third and fourth are already pointed at his face and his legs. The Greeks spent centuries perfecting close combat. Philip built a formation that never let the fight get that close. The phalanx didn't press with individual spears. It pressed as one solid mass marching in step. This wasn't a copy of the hoplite system. It was a flat refusal to participate in it. But handing people long sticks is only half the job. One gap in the line exposes a flank. One wrong step breaks the wall. Macedon's real weapon was discipline. The infantry drilled endlessly to move as a single machine, while cavalry and light troops covered its vulnerable sides. In 338 BC at Chaeronea, this machine met the combined army of Athens and Thebes and crushed it. It looked like an ancient cheat code: pack your men tighter and walk slowly forward. But to bring down the colossal Persian Empire, a wall of spears alone wasn't enough. Philip had built the anvil. His son Alexander added the perfect hammer: heavy cavalry. At Gaugamela, Alexander met Darius's enormous army on a wide-open plain. The phalanx did its main job. It slammed into the Persian center and pinned it in place, while thousands of enemies were stuck against the wall of sarissas. Alexander stretched the Persian flank, waited for a gap to open, and drove his cavalry straight into it. The phalanx held the empire by the throat. The cavalry broke its spine. And then came the thing that kills every successful system. After Alexander's death, his successors copied only the most obvious part: the long pikes. A blind arms race began. Sarissa fought sarissa. The pikes got longer, the formations got deeper, the weapon grew so enormous it was barely liftable, trading tactical flexibility for raw mass. The heavier the phalanx became, the more it depended on perfectly flat ground. Any slope, any ditch, now broke the rhythm and tore open the unbroken line of blades. The phalanx became unbeatable on paper and incredibly fragile in reality. Then it met an army built on the opposite idea. Roman legions were flexible. They could break into small units and keep fighting on their own. In 168 BC at Pydna, the Macedonian steamroller advanced on the Romans. The legionaries couldn't crack it head-on. They hacked at the shafts with their swords, and they got pushed back. Nearly 200 years on, the sarissa still worked flawlessly, but the Macedonians kept advancing, and the flat ground ran out. One section of the phalanx climbed a slope, another swung around a dip, a third picked up the pace. The solid wall lost its rhythm, and gaps opened up. The Roman legionaries simply dove into them. That was the end. At close range, inside a broken formation, the sarissa turned into a 5-meter liability. You can't stab with it up close. The Macedonians reached for their short daggers, but with a small shield against a Roman sword, they never stood a chance. The defeat was total. The Macedonians didn't conquer the ancient world because they found the perfect stick. They won because they forced their enemies to fight where their weapons no longer worked, and they vanished from the map when they met someone who rewrote the rules one more time.